Hi. So I want to talk about the ethical issues around nonprofit organizations, as well as making sure that nonprofits choose the correct funding model to maximize the funding, and then also ethical issues and fundraising issues around nonprofits. So, of course, the top 5 ethical issues: salaries and perks. For example, the New York Public Library, that CEO was given a raise, and he was then at the time making over $800,000 a year, where the majority of his employees were grossly underpaid, and they were still having fundraising and trying to get new books into the library. And certainly that income is controversial because that could have given his employees raises or gone a long way in supplying the library with different needs. So that was an issue. And salaries and perks. Accountability, always an issue, making sure that you have the correct board in place with your nonprofit that's going to take accountability, stand up when they've done something wrong, and make a change. Conflicts of interest: should board members obtain contracts and donations from their own organization? Always a hot topic. People taking things home, people gaining different contracts for their personal business outside of the nonprofit, items like that. Fraud: it's always important to keep an eye out for fraud. It can be easy for nonprofits because most of them don't have the funds to have an outside auditor come in, take a look at their books, their budget, their funding. But some boards, if you get the wrong board in place, a non-ethical board in place, they will take that advantage to not have outside auditors, and that's when you get into shady business trainings like the Baptist Foundation of Arizona. The board doing inappropriate and unethical things. And then tax evasion. Tax evasion always an issue. Nonprofits using their nonprofit status to get away with tax-free items and issues like that. Principles for good governance and ethical practice includes Hebrews 13:16. Always such a great verse. And do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices God is pleased. Such a great verse to kind of base your board on. People who want to please God, people who don't want to forget to share, even nonprofits sharing with nonprofits. Such a great practice to get into. Fundraising issues should be addressed in a couple different ways. Having a sufficient program quality in place. Items like the Macmillan scenarios from our text can be used to just make sure that you get a great nonprofit in your community that's not like any other nonprofit. Sometimes communities can have the same type of nonprofit in the same area, and people are tapped out on funding those programs when you have so many of the same kind. So kind of placing your nonprofit in a great place within Macmillan scenarios, making sure it's a strong program is always helpful to start off with. Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Again, nonprofits helping nonprofits, so great. Again, creating an effective board, adopting codes of conduct and conflict of interest policies, implementing professional management, maintaining an independent board and providing information to that board, and a management style that includes communication with staff and fiscal conservatism, and an organizational structure that assures the flow of information. That kind of leads into the next topic of kind of getting everybody in the same room, on the same page, in line with the mission and vision of the organization. And what's great about getting everyone in the same room is that not only do you get everyone on the same page, but then you find those people and you find those board members that are not on the same page, and you can get them out of the organization. If it's not going to work well for them, you're going to find out early on, which is really great. Determining the appropriate funding model is important, because like I said, if you're tapping the same source over and over and over again for funding, people are just not going to want to share their money, not going to want to fund that organization. But also, if you're going after the wrong people, if you're going after the wrong donators, you can waste your time, you can waste your resources, you can waste precious time that you could be getting money from other people. So it's important to know like who those people are from the get-go, so you can just start off on the right path. Largely funded by individual donators. Those funding models include the Heartfelt Connector, Beneficiary Builder, and the Member Motivator. Those are all over, all funded by mostly individual people. So those funding models would go after those individuals. And of course, you have those people who are largely funded by government, the public provider, policy innovator, and beneficiary broker. If you're in that funding model, you know that your funder is the government, so you know that you need to go for grants and things like that. So you don't have to waste your time, going after donators that aren't going to fit into that appropriate model. So nonprofits that kind of seek money wherever they can, just kind of get the money for the sake of getting the money, can be hurtful for them in the long run and definitely not beneficial. So knowing your funding model, having an ethical and appropriate board in place, and selecting a program with high quality are all going to set you off on the right track to get your funding in place and get your nonprofit up and going in a great direction.